You know, the folks gathered here are going to spend a few days talking about the power of progressive practice. So I wanted you to bring it down a notch. They spent today, for example, looking at a set of schools here in the Chicago area. And Glenn Beck, again, when he attacked...
what is your preoccupation?
I read this so you don't have to. This is my service. I read Glenn Beck so you don't have to. But Glenn Beck, among the things he says, and he would have been interested to be on your tours today, because he pulls out 4 schools as examples of the catastrophic effects of your philosophy. And so I'm going to name these schools, but I'm naming them because I want you to get practical with us. I want you to come down a notch from philosophizing about it. I want you to talk about progressive practice. I want you to talk about that experiential question, walking into, say, Zio's pre-kindergarten classroom, or say a junior high or a high school English class. What would it look like? How would you know that it was a reflection of what you're talking about? The schools that Beck singles out for criticism are the Little Red Schoolhouse in Manhattan, which I served on the board of 25 years ago, the Prairie Creek Community School in Northfield, Massachusetts, the school in Rose Valley in Pennsylvania, and the Wingrove School in Madison, Wisconsin. Yeah, in the house. So you're mentioned as an example of exactly where Dewey took us down the primrose path to the devil's work. So I want you to get practical and talk a bit about, I mean, they've all looked at progressive schools. Most of them work in progressive schools. But how does this philosophy get translated into the classroom in a practical way?
In the quality of the human relationships between students with students and teachers with students and teachers with teachers. And that's something that you can only partially observe on a brief visit. I know you've probably all had visitors to your own classrooms, and you wonder how can they get anything out of it without knowing, without really being able to experience the interaction, the deep interaction felt among the individuals there. And that has to be the basis for a kind of democratic, it's not just voting on things and that sort of thing, but it's that basic relationship. And it's a relationship of a deep sort of love, an agape kind of love, I would say. It's not really it's not something that you can create a recipe for.
If you can't create a recipe for it, then I'm hearing Arnie Duncan standing on my shoulder. Just an aside, I went and visited my son Malik, who's been at 10 years a middle school math and science teacher in Oakland, California. And after I was with him for a morning, my 10th visit or something, I said to him on our way to lunch, "You're a great teacher." And I was thinking exactly what you said, his relationships with each kid. He knew something about each kid who came in. He'd say, "Hector, remember what we're doing after school?" And "Maria, how's your mother since the operation?" But he also knew something about where they were in math and science. And I was just very moved by the relationships. And I said, "Malik, you are a great teacher." And he responded by saying, "Pops, don't say that. I'm not a great teacher. I'm a guy who gets up every morning and does the work of teaching. I try to be a better teacher." And I said, "That's part of why you're a great teacher." And then I said, "Do you think Arnie Duncan's ever been in a classroom like this?" And he responded by saying, "I think when you become an administrator or you get kicked up to a policy level, you take a pill that makes you forget everything you knew about classroom life." I resonated to that. And then he said, "There are really two kinds of people in education, people like me who teach and people who write about and think about and make policy about teaching." And then he said, "With all due respect, you're that kind of guy." And I said, "Thanks." But I'm thinking, I'm resonating to what you're saying, but I'm going back to this question. You say it's not a recipe. Well, how then does a system implement? I mean, I can see how you would do it in this classroom or this classroom, and you would feel good about it. But how does a system like Chicago allow that to happen or encourage it to happen?
I think you have to give teachers the freedom to inquire into what they think is worthwhile and to take that kind of question to the students at any level and get them to ask what's worth doing, knowing, being, becoming, and so forth. I think that, and in order to do that, you have to have, and this is a title of one of my books, a common faith. You have to have a common faith in human beings and what human beings can accomplish, and the kinds of questions that you're deriving from, who is it? Glenn Beck and Arnie Duncan. Yes. I would say are questions that don't bespeak someone of having a common faith. Not a common faith in human beings, to be able to, if given the freedom, to be able to move in the right direction. If human beings are basically evil and will do lazy and perverted things if left on their own, then there isn't much hope at all.